Before we start this video, I just want to point out this video was recorded before Stephen Curry went completely bonkers. He's been going absolutely insane, but I just wanted to point that out because I didn't know that Stephen Curry is going to be doing this. But let's get into the video.
Who was the best point guard of the past decade between Kyrie Irving, Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul, Stephen Curry, and Damian Lillard? I'm going to start with Rob. What's your take?
If we talk about just the flat-out best point guard of the past decade, I'm going to have to go Chris Paul. And it's just because of leadership, in my opinion. I think when you play the point guard position, it's going to hinge a lot on the leadership standpoint. And because of that, I got to go Chris Paul. You look at the impact that he's had over his past couple of years. Just look at the Suns right now. The Suns were literally bottom feeders before Chris Paul got there. Oklahoma City Thunders, we thought they'd be left for dead. Even before that, when he joined the Houston Rockets, they were up 3-2 against arguably the best team assembled that we've ever seen before. Like literally about to beat them, and then he got injured. Even before that, he joined the Clippers, a literal moribund team. He basically changed their lives, and also the Pelicans changed their lives as well. So I think because of that, just because of his impact, I have to say he's the best point guard. Now, number two, I'd have to give it to Russell Westbrook. I think Russell Westbrook right now, I mean, just what he's done in the past 10 years has been absolutely insane. Statistically, we already know exactly what he does there and what he brings to the table statistically, and also his mindset. I personally think that Russell Westbrook, just because of CP's leadership, I wouldn't put him above that, but I think he's definitely a legendary player. Now, I think one of the more surprising things that a lot of people are probably going to hear when I say that is people going to ask me, what's the situation with Stephen Curry? My gripe with Stephen Curry is that he's never really shown up when it really matters. He's never really shown up in the big moments. Now, remind you, Stephen Curry got championships under his belt. He doesn't have a Finals MVP. The only Finals MVP that he really came close to was when Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love went down before the playoffs even started. And in fact, when K Love was down and Kyrie Irving was playing with LeBron James in 2015, they went to overtime and they almost won, but Kyrie Irving got injured in overtime. Now, here's the thing about Stephen Curry. When it really matters, for example, in 2016, Game 7, he went 6 for 19. That is literally 35%. And not only that, he went 1 for 5 in the fourth quarter. And not just regular misses. He was shooting shots off of the backboard. He was getting switched on by Kevin Love. Like, what are we talking about here? We talked about and we chronicled how Stephen Curry's production always dips a little bit in the playoffs. He gotten better over time, but the reason why he did get better over time was because he has KD with them and Klay Thompson with them. He couldn't really get double teamed. Now, this year was supposed to be a very big year for Stephen Curry's legacy, in my opinion. Russell Westbrook could carry a team to the playoffs by himself. We know CP3's leadership and production in terms of elevating the team. Stephen Curry this year should have elevated a team. Now, I understand the talent isn't necessarily there. Same like Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul, they can elevate talent around them. Coming to the season, Kelly Oubre averaged 19 points per game. He's still up there this year. He's about 15 points per game, fell off a little bit. Andrew Wiggins, he was a 20-point per game scorer. If Stephen Curry was like a CP3, in my opinion, this team would be in the playoffs, period. I think if Russell Westbrook, you put prime Russell Westbrook on that team, this team would be in the playoffs, period. Right now, they're around 10. They're around a 10th seed. So because of that, I can't necessarily put them up there. You have great point guards on those. Even Damian Lillard can carry a team with mediocre players, no other all-stars, and still be in the playoffs. Stephen Curry has not proven that to me. And in the big moments like 2016 Game 7, he hasn't necessarily stepped up.
Wow. I mean,
it's a lot to take in right there.
That's a lot to take in. I mean, first things I just want to say, Derrick Rose is the youngest MVP in league history. I don't think we should overlook that, and he was a point guard as well.
Absolutely.
Moving on. So to start, my man's Damian Lillard. Much respect, much love. A top 2 point guard right now, in my opinion. I think it's unfair to have him in this conversation simply because his accolades just don't measure up to the other 4 guys, and he's been swept in the playoffs not once but twice. With a running mate, he has a good team around him, so much respect. But I don't think it's fair to have him in this conversation. Now you mentioned Russell Westbrook and Chris Paul over Steph Curry. Here's my issue with that. Chris Paul, Hall of Fame point guard, floor general, but we're talking about the 2010s. We're not talking about the 2000s. In the 2000s, being a floor general is what a point guard was. That's what made a point guard elite. You had guys like him, or I mean, it really was just him. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, it was really just him when he came in 04, I believe. But in the 2010s, being a point guard was about scoring. It was about, can you score the ball? Can you be the leader of the team? It's no more, just pick and roll basketball, assists, averaged 19 and 10 assists. Otherwise, we have John Wall in this conversation as well. So that's why I think it comes down to really Russell Westbrook and Steph Curry. The reason I don't really have Kyrie Irving held higher, and I don't even think you mentioned Kyrie Irving, is because Kyrie Irving is just, he's a show for sure, but he's on nobody's list as far as best point guard in the game. I don't think he ever has been the best point guard in the game.
He's just a bucket getter.
Yeah, he's just a bucket getter, and a lot of his success comes from LeBron James. His only ring comes from LeBron James. So, So it comes down to Russell Westbrook and Steph Curry for me. And to be honest, you kind of swayed me. I got to go with Russell Westbrook. And here's why. Since Russell Westbrook came into this game around, around 2012 or so, or 2011, around that time, he was labeled...
09.
Around 09, even better. He was already neck and neck with Derrick Rose for most athletic point guard we've ever seen. D. Rose got hurt. Russell Westbrook kept going. Russell Westbrook has won an MVP. He shattered the triple double. I mean, the record alone, like, nobody's touching him. He beat the Big O. Steph Curry. Yeah, Steph Curry changed the game with shooting, but first of all, Steph Curry didn't really become Steph Curry until about 2015, so about the second half of the decade. Whereas Russell Westbrook has just been a dog for the entire decade. He doesn't scare. Sometimes he does too much, and it's a detriment to the team. But like Rob said, Steph Curry does struggle, in the closing moments. We've seen, just when they went against the Toronto Raptors, Adrian, you said it yourself. The big shot that he missed, we've seen him make that how many times in quarters 1, 2, and 3. But when it comes down to the big shot, he just doesn't get it done. So you can't use that argument against Russell Westbrook just because he can't shoot. Steph Curry can shoot, but doesn't make the big shot. He's still, one of the greatest. But then you also got to take into account Russell Westbrook. He's in a class of his own. Without winning a ring, he's going to go down as a Hall of Famer. He's the most athletic point guard we've ever seen. I already said he has the records, the accolades, and Russell Westbrook is going to give you 110% every single night, and availability too. He's always available. Mm-hmm. So I Rob, you kind of swayed me, man, but I got to give it to Russell Westbrook simply off the eye test alone and consistency throughout the decade. You know what you're getting with Russell Westbrook.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but as a Thunder fan, I'm going to have to disagree.
What?
I'm putting Steph as the best point guard of the decade. And look, it was a hard decision for me. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie to y'all.
Crazy.
But when I sat down and thought about it, Steph literally got drafted and came to the league in 2010. His career was the 2010s. And there were moments in his career where we were talking about, is he the top 3 point guards of all time? Let that sink in. In a 5-year span, because like you said, his first All-Star season was in 2014. In the span of 6 years, we were like, he might be one of the best point guards to ever do it. And off of that alone, and what he's done to the game of basketball, how does somebody single-handedly change the game of basketball in 5 years? Like, I feel like what he did in that 5 to 6 year span is greater than the numbers and consistency Russ has been putting up. So it's really hard for me to say, but I really think what Steph did in that short time, it's how we play basketball today, and it's because of Steph.
Listen, I'm sensitive to that fact. I understand. In 2014, when Stephen Curry came out and said he was offensively better than LeBron James, I agreed with him, and people basically called me crazy. I thought that Stephen Curry in 2014, this is before he went I believe 67 and 15. This is before that, and people called me crazy. I thought Stephen Curry was absolutely insane, but here's the thing. When it comes down to actually affecting the basketball game, how good are you? And I believe Stephen Curry right now, I'm not necessarily saying that he's the best he's ever been, but Stephen Curry is much more close to his prime right now than Russell Westbrook. I believe that Stephen Curry right now should have carried that team to the playoffs. He possibly still can because of the play-in tournament. But I think if Russell Westbrook, if Chris Paul, if Damian Lillard, and to some extent, I wouldn't even say Kyrie Irving. Let's take him off the board. If they were in Stephen Curry's spot right now, I highly doubt like not current Russell Westbrook, prime Russell Westbrook, by the way. But if they were in Stephen Curry's spot right now, that team would definitely be in the playoffs, even in the West. And another thing, Tyler brought up, pure point guard and CP3 being a pure point guard, and that's why he's not necessarily the best. I think that CP3 is the best, not only just because of the pure point guard point, but I think being a pure point guard, you affect the game in a much bigger light. I mean, so much of the point guard position right now is just based off of scoring. And when we talk about scoring, it's not necessarily always the best thing to do. For example, we bring up the greatest discussion when LeBron James and Carmelo was coming out. It was the fact that Carmelo was just a flat out better scorer. That didn't necessarily mean he was the better player. I think you kind of compare these two in the same light. Stephen Curry right now is or most of his career, even in 2010s, been a completely zero on a defensive end. CP3 is actually a very good defender for his size, especially because it's around 6'1". I think because of that, and also the offensive game that CP3 has, he's literally a coach on the floor. He gets everybody in the same position. He makes sure that everybody's on the same page. That right there basically vaults him above a player like Stephen Curry.
My response to that is this: if you are familiar with the Colin Cowherd show, he had Kenyon Martin on the show, and Kenyon Martin basically spilled the beans about guys don't like to play with Chris Paul simply because of, like you said, sometimes that leadership, that being a coach on the court, is too much for guys, and that sometimes becomes a detriment to the team. Whereas a guy like Russell Westbrook, just off of his motor alone, how he's 110% full throttle every night, that gets guys going. That's what get guys happy. They want to run through a wall for you. So I mean, I get what you're saying. As a overall player, I can see why you would say Chris Paul is the best of the decade. But I think from an impact standpoint on what you do on the court, Russell Westbrook can drag a team from last in the conference and get him at least to that 7th or 8th seed by himself.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm also gonna have to disagree on you saying if any of the other players were on the current Golden State Warriors, they would be dragging them to the playoffs. I don't think so, man. This Warriors team is down bad, bro. I don't feel like they have the talent to be going to the playoffs right now.
I mean, if you want to compare, we can compare OKC, the team that Russ dragged to the playoffs, to this team right here. I mean, the only other score that he really had was Victor Oladipo, and he was averaging around 16 points per game. And even before that, he wasn't necessarily a very big scorer. We understand Andrew Wiggins already scored 24 points per game in the season already, even though, of course, albeit he was on the Minnesota Timberwolves. The team that Victor Oladipo was on was Orlando. They weren't necessarily a very good team either. But you could just see, I mean, offensively, it seemed like Andrew Wiggins was definitely a better player. When it comes to centers, of course, what's called Steven Adams was a much better defensive help. But offensively, it was pretty much the same in my opinion. Russell Westbrook was pretty much the person that carried them. I just believe that Russell Westbrook, CP3, and including Dame, you take them and put them on a Golden State Warriors team, you get a better result.
Why do you say that about Damian Lillard? Because they're really similar in a lot of ways. The only thing that really separates them is that Dame can hit that big shot. Is that why you would say that Dame will have a better chance of getting his team to the playoffs than Steph? Because Steph is the better player.
Here's the thing. Even in this season, for example, I know this hasn't necessarily been like the 2010s, but let's just say the past 10 years, even in this season, Damian Lillard, without CJ McCollum, pretty much tread water. He was doing better than Stephen Curry is right now. CJ McCollum, throughout most of this year, was injured. And even right now, as of right now, Portland Trailblazers are still in the 5th seed. All throughout Damian Lillard's career, even when CJ McCollum was still like young and coming up, even when Dame was still young and coming up, the Portland Trailblazers was still in the playoffs, even though he did have LaMarcus Aldridge. I have to point that out. But regardless, I just think that Damian Lillard knows how to bring his team to victory. I just don't necessarily think that Stephen Curry is that type of player as of yet. Now, he might prove me wrong possibly next year with the return of Klay Thompson. I don't know. But it's just not necessarily all the way there yet. I don't necessarily think he could drag a team to the playoffs. I just haven't seen it. Now, another thing I want to point out, Kyrie. I think that Kyrie he's not good. He's just not good.
Wow.
Not in regards to flat out talent. And here's another big reason. You could compare Kyrie Irving to like a Russell Westbrook. You compare Kyrie Irving to like a CP3. Kyrie Irving by far has the most talent on his list, except for Stephen Curry, obviously. But the thing about Kyrie Irving is that his impact isn't necessarily that big. And of course, I rate impact so much. I said CP3 is the best because surely because of his impact. But even in the finals, when Kyrie Irving went against Stephen Curry in 2016, Kyrie Irving completely outplayed Stephen Curry. And I'm not even putting Kyrie in this discussion. So you see where I'm coming from. You see where I'm coming from? I just don't necessarily think that Stephen Curry is up on that tier to actually drag a team.
I mean, I see what you're saying. I don't like that you use Kyrie Irving as an example just because of what we seen him do in Boston, and he was never really 100% when he got to Brooklyn at first. But I see your point. I just would have used somebody like a Russell Westbrook or Chris Paul before I use Kyrie Irving as an example of that.
No, the only reason why I said Kyrie is because Kyrie completely outplayed Stephen Curry. That's the only reason.
I get you.